We Europeans, as we're living on the old continent, we have to get used to what I would qualify as a 2.5 superpower world. The United States and China playing in the Premier League. Russia, major power, but second division. And that is a new geopolitical environment for us Europeans because we have grown used, and I would add too much grown used, to what we qualify as Pax Americana, a one superpower world under US leadership. And as we all know, rehab should follow addiction. So we Europeans should be in a certain process of rehab. The United States of America, it was said already, polarized as never before. I would go as far as to say that the US is politically dysfunctional. We have midterm elections this year in November, and they are about the survival of President Biden's internal political agenda. If he loses the midterms, if he loses the House, but he might, I hope not, also lose the Senate, then his internal agenda will come to a halt. And we have, let's not forget, in 2024 already, we have presidential elections, where it is very important that we will not see the return of President Trump or a Trump clone in the White House. Russia. Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, and he was already on the picture, wants his empire back. His empire, quote unquote. He wants to go back to Yalta, where Europe was divided just after the Second World War. Rather back to the 19th century. The big nations have spheres of influence. He wants the United States out of Europe. That is also his ambition and his goal in the present very dangerous Ukrainian situation. I have tried for tonight to draft a non-exhaustive, I underline, a non-exhaustive to-do list. First, further strengthen the euro. Not just on the basis of the classic and very valid argument that the euro, of course, is as much a financial monetary project as a political project, but also from a geopolitical perspective. I think the euro should stronger play a role on world markets as a reserve currency. Finish the capital market union and finish the banking union. Very important, I think. Second, be serious about vetting Chinese investments. In the United States, there is an organization, an institution called CFIUS, which checks and vets where the Chinese want to invest. And I think we could be a bit more serious in the European Union about areas, for instance, infrastructure, classic infrastructure, but also, perhaps more important, tech. The European Union passed the test on COVID. I mentioned the COVID Recovery Fund. I mentioned the possibility that the Commission can go and borrow money on the international capital markets, a sea change, in my opinion. And they now should also pass the test, and that's an important one, in the very serious crisis with Russia on Ukraine, where, as I said, European Union unity is not a given, and where on top of this all, unity with the United States of America is of the essence. And Putin, in that regard, has chosen an interesting tactical moment for his pressure on Ukraine. A new coalition in Germany, which is still a bit wrestling with how to take position vis-à-vis Russia and vis-à-vis Ukraine. And a French president who goes up for re-election next April. So I'm not going to say that there's a vacuum in European Union leadership, but we are close. I have two messages in closing. One, and that's in fact the conclusion, I cannot remember a moment in my career, and it's pretty long by now, when the bell for Europe and European unity is ringing so loudly as it is now. Look around, superpower China, assertive, aggressive. Superpower America, polarized, facing a major constitutional crisis. Facing rival superpower China and a revanchist and revisionist Russia. Carve out our position in this area of hard power politics will not be easy because it's not in our DNA. But it should be based on self-confidence. I repeat, we are a financial economic giant, and we should and can grow in the foreign policy and defense domains. My final message is of a different category. It's out of the box. And that is my opinion that the challenges facing us are not the prerogative of the political class and the public sector alone. Substantial input from the private sector is still too modest, but is of the essence. There is too much operating in silos. Public and private are criticizing each other, usually behind closed doors and in the company of their peers. Corporate sector has sometimes a questionable reputation in politics, high bonuses, high variable remuneration. And in the boardroom, there is complaining about the limited horizon and opportunistic behavior of the political class. And I think we should, public and private, see much more eye to eye on all relevant topics in the interest of the European project. And I would like to see CEOs and others more actively participating in the debate about the challenges we are facing, the challenges the European Union is facing.
But let's go straight into the heart of the matter and start with today's news on that looming war in Ukraine. Until now, it has been mostly a diplomatic crisis, yet with little achieved. Are we now entering the really dangerous, scary phase of a real war the coming days or weeks? Or are there still diplomatic solutions?
We are still talking. Today in Paris, the Normandy format came together, which is Ukraine and Russia, interestingly enough, and France and Germany. So there is still diplomatic activity. But as I said in my keynote, the demands of Russia and of President Putin are so enormous and so bizarre, I would like to add, that we know that NATO and the EU cannot possibly agree to anything. They can agree to many other things, but not to the central demands made by Vladimir Putin. And he is so high up in the tree that, again, as I said, I repeat, how could he climb down without losing face? Where does he find a ladder, and how is he going to climb down?
So you do expect military action?
Well, it's a bit too much to say that I do expect, because I simply don't know. I can't look into Vladimir Putin's head at the moment. Neither can all of us. But I do consider this crisis and the situation as one of the most serious, if not the most serious crisis since the Second World War, where the risk for conflict is really very substantial.